Technically speaking, I ain't talking vegan when I said that I've been eating, making money on the side, but I use it for the main.
Welcome back to another lesson with the Computer Science Bootcamp 2023 edition. Okay. Like always, I just like to go over a few, housekeeping items just so it stays on your brain, right? So first things first, always make sure you know where to start if this is your first time coming in and you're just popping into one of the classes or one of the replays. Make sure you're starting at day one and then follow through each stage in order. Please do not bounce around unless you're just trying to, you're just studying, going, finding things, videos that you've already watched, okay? So please watch them in order first. Need help? Discord is the first place you go if you need help with anything, whether it's computer science bootcamp related or not, it doesn't matter. Reach out in Discord, okay? You can email us alternatively. That may take 24, 48 hours, but you can still email us. We'll still get back to you. Text us. We have that option as well. Okay. So how to win in life. Make sure that you are reviewing these 8 little, key tips, key steps on how to win in life. Again, this thing is not about your skill. It is about your will. So you really want to make sure that you're in the right mindset as you start to study. We always want to have, what is our why? Why are we here? What are we doing? And that's going to keep you focused on learning something that's completely new to you. That's completely, out of your realm. Okay. So remember these, key steps, how to win in life. The material below this little box right here, the material tells you where we are currently at. So again, you can see where we're at in the boot camp if you need to catch up and get to where we're at for live classes. And I'll probably update this later on when we're finished with the boot camp. I'll probably actually say when we complete the date. But for right now, just you can keep up with the current status. We are still in phase 1, week 1, okay? Finding our niche. We're still talking about how computers talk to each other, okay? This is Tuesday. So, we already had our weekend, our study groups. We'll study in the Discord for the weekend days. You guys did a little study and got caught up, kind of got your notebooks and your flashcards together, some things and that such. So we are continuing on with, how computers talk. Remember, the Zoom link is always here. I will not post it all the time in the Discord. So please remember that at this time, you need to click on this link, okay? Make sure you always have access to Notion. Okay, so if you're watching this replay, you do not have access to Notion, please make sure you reach out to get that access, okay? Let's move it on into today's lesson, week 1, computer networking, right? So we talked about what a network is. So we already, we have the understanding of when they say computer networking or computer networks, we kind of could build, a picture in our head of computers, of servers, of switch routers, things and that such, right? And then we talked about how to gain access to that computer network. And we can do that in our, residential way, or we can do that in a corporate enterprise setting. But it all means that we just access switch. We access the layer 2 connectivity, which is switching, switch devices. And switches, they only deal with MAC addressing. So we did a little activity where we found our own MAC address, our physical address of us on the network. We went ahead and talked about IP connectivity yesterday or the other day, I think. Yeah. We talked about IP connectivity. And IP connectivity is basically connecting to the internet, right? IP is internet protocol, and we're literally trying to connect to the internet, trying to talk to others that are outside of our own local network, okay? Our own local area network, LAN. Now, we talked about that, and we talked about the services that layer 2, layer 3, which is IP services, layer 2 services, which is MAC addressing and switches. We talked about these 2 layers and how they come together to provide IP services, to provide services so we can use the internet effectively and efficiently, right? Things such as network time protocol, okay? And now, today, we're going to talk about security. So we know how to access the network. We know what it means to get layer 2 connectivity, layer 3 connectivity, and those two layers just really work together for us to just do whatever we want to do on the internet. But we still have to take into account that we have to secure ourselves on the network. We have to make sure that, hackers are bad actors, people who use the internet in a malicious way. We're not subject to their wrongdoings. We won't have a part in or be that victim of that crime per se, right? And on turn, we know how to secure ourselves and secure our devices, and in turn we can, go down the realm of being more into security, like cybersecurity engineers or architects, and more in that realm, right? But let's go into the basics of security. Now, before I even go in, do you guys have any questions, comments, concerns about anything? I want to open this floor up now before we dive into the meat and potatoes. No? Good? All right. So let's talk about security here. Now, security is very important. And why is it important? Because you always want to reduce the risk of you falling victim. Okay. You don't want to, fall victim of hold on, did someone say something? I'm sorry, guys. You do not want to fall victim of, your data being sabotaged or your data being stolen. Imagine thinking of your social security number. Think of, just really stuff on your ID or even your credit card number, and, your numbers on the credit card number, your birth certificate. Like, just think about little things and that such to get you kind of in the realm of, oh, okay, I need to protect my data just like I protect my social security number, or I protect my birth certificate, right? Data is just as important. Now, again, we do not want that data to be used anywhere. We do not want people to put, I don't know, let's say a phone bill in your name because they have your social security number, right? The same way as we do not want anyone to look at our credit card numbers and that little expiration date and stuff to put purchases from Amazon on our card, and this, that's the normal, end user way of falling victim of, data death. But there's so many other ways that you can do that when you think about, like, the credit bureaus are experiencing getting, breached. Their data is getting breached. So, all those people who have their credit reports, someone's able to see that other than them or who they gave access to. Just think about in a hospital, right? We do not want those patients' files to just be seen by anybody and everybody. Okay, so, just having good network security just really helps, the system, the business, and everybody using this network, it helps it from falling victim, right? Now, when we're in the network department, we deal with security on a high level, but you would have to really be something like a security engineer, firewall engineer to really get deep dive into security, going down the path of like cybersecurity, right? So again, we're just learning high level of a network, why it's good to protect. Okay. Now, there's some keywords that you should really, if whether you know them or not. These are something that at least these three key terms you should know when it comes to security, right? Vulnerability is the one. It's just open to attack. That's all vulnerability is. It just refers to, your inability, to withstand, attacks in a hostile environment type ordeal, right? So you want to make sure that you're not open to any type of attacks. Another one is exploit. That's take advantage of your flaws, right? So software is going to have flaws. Technology is going to have flaws, So what bad actors will do, or hackers will do, or people who are, not in the business of doing good business or good company, they'll take advantage of those flaws and they'll exploit it, right? They'll take advantage and, maybe something like, you do not have antivirus software on your computer. So now that you don't have that, someone can probably, hack in and see your files that you have saved on your desktop or something in that ordeal. That's probably the easiest example I can give you, like malware software type ordeal, right? Some of us have like Nord or McAfee or something, and that's what you want to have on your computer to protect your computer. You secure your computer because again, there's flaws in your browser, there's flaws on the apps that you download on your computer. So to protect the whole computer, you would, use that malware software, right? Another one is threat, right? Threat just means unwanted impact. Okay. Threat is just like, a potential negative action is going to happen. We do not want this, this impact. And, threats, when you think of threats, think of something like, like a phishing email, when they're saying, hey, they're trying to act like your boss, or they're trying to act like you won $50 or $50,000 or something. And, you click on this link, but the link is not to the actual company that they, deem to be. And then, of course, since you clicked on the link, you're now, vulnerable to certain attacks that they have put in place, right? So, what we want to do is just make sure that we are not, vulnerable. We don't have any, flaws to where people can exploit, or threats to come in, and at least we want to reduce it, because again, this is technology, so we're going to have flaws in it. Nothing's going to be 100% perfect. That's why people go in cybersecurity so much, because they pay so much, because it's riding all on you. Like, regardless of if me as the voice engineer, I forget to put on some type of configuration on the router or switch or server, the minute we have a security breach, that's all the security team, So even though I didn't complete my job fully, I'm not the one that's going to get chewed out. The security team is going to get chewed out. So, take that for what it is. But security is very important, very always in demand. It's going to do nothing but grow. You're definitely going to have jobs in it, but it's very stressful. Okay. And at least that's what I hear from the people that I work with. Now, moving on, I digress. Mitigation techniques. Again, it's just reducing the severity of something when we talk about mitigation, right? So these techniques that we have on a very high level is user awareness, training, and physical access control. So let's start with user awareness. User awareness is exactly what it is. We're making the user aware. So we're literally, coming out with some type of training program or some type of documentation or some type of fine print that you have to click and sign before you get access to this system, or whatever the case is. We have some type of training program, or some type of documentation, or we're just making you aware of the security. A lot of times we do not read terms and conditions, right? So it's telling you, hey, if you upload this photo to Lensa AI, we can use this photo any way we deem, and you own no rights of it, even though that's a photo of your face, right? It's still giving you user awareness, still giving you that security aspect that you don't have to use it if you do not want this to be said or be done, right? So user awareness is always great to read the fine print, or at least to know overall what your security risks are as a user, as a person that's just using the service, using the software, using whatever, right? Because this can be applied in many different ways in life outside of this technology, outside of just, make sure that, you secure this router, make sure you secure this network, make sure you secure your credit card, make sure you secure your identity, make sure you secure your life, right? So again, user awareness, we're just making sure that you are aware. Strict guidelines, you got to follow it. You guys all have a job before. You all know about they telling you about what you can and cannot do. And if you do this, this is the consequences. Training. It's, user training, same kind of thing, but it's more in a periodic type of way. It's more like, okay, well, I made you aware, but I'm going to train you on ensuring that you keep this awareness going. So again, if you're at work in corporate, or not even corporate, you work at any job, you usually have to take some type of safety training, security training ever so often. Every company has its own schedule. But, let's just say in a warehouse, like, maybe every 3 months you have to go into this classroom and learn about how not to play around on the forklift. I don't know. But, you're getting training on keeping this awareness. You're getting training on the new updated security protocols. And that's all, that information is all contingent upon your role. So you as a VP will get a different training than you as a call center worker, right? You as the manager will get different security training than, let's say maybe the program manager. I don't know, but just know that the training is subject on what you're dealing with. Physical access control, exactly what it sounds like. We are literally limiting the physical access of devices. So just like your phone, you have a passcode, or maybe you have your thumbprint or your Face ID, right? You are limiting physical access into your phone. So we have the same things in networking. So I don't know, again, I don't know if you guys follow me on Facebook, but I showed you guys me at the data center. And in order to access our servers, I had to go inside what we call a cage. A cage is nothing but a whole bunch of racks of our servers that belong to our company. And then, within those racks are also locked with the key that house our physical servers, house the physical routers, the physical switches, and all that stuff. So we can virtualize it. So again, physical access. One, you have to go to the data center to even get to our networking equipment. And that data center is controlled by like military police, right? They walk in their badges and their uniform, and they're securing you. You have to have multiple layers of thumbprint security, on top of the badge security, right? And then you have to make sure doors are closed behind you before you move on to the next door. Like, it's very, very secure. And we're going to, put those layers in place because we do not want anyone to just come in to our servers, to our routers, and just plug in and do whatever they want. Think of it being like Google. Do you think Google would allow anybody to just pull up to their data center, just come on in and, probably, sneak through behind doors for someone that's like, oh, I forgot my badge, let me get through? Like, no, they're not. It's secure. Before you can even roll up to park your car, you're getting, ID'd, right? So physical access control is so many layers. So secure that, again, let's say you work network engineer and you are in a Navy base or something, or any Army, base or something. In the military is what I'm thinking of the word. That level of control can go as far as that, or, as simple as just your freaking, passcode on your phone, right? So physical access training and user awareness is what's going to help us mitigate security risks, right? It's going to help us make sure that we stay tip top. Now, before we go in, for my crypto people, we know a lot about security. Like, we have our ledger, and our ledger, has we could just, when we have to go as far as our ledger, we can go as far as just like our software wallet, our MetaMask wallet. We have our keys, we have our seed phrase that we literally have to write down and keep, like it's our birth certificate or something, or social. And it allows us into our money. And if anybody has that seed phrase, then, or those keys, then, they take our crypto, right? So we want to be able to really understand security to protect ourselves through all realms of life, okay? Now, going more into network engineering, we have what's called the triple A's: authenticate, authorization, and accounting. So we have a server that we specifically set up to do these three A's right here. And anytime somebody access our network, anytime someone, decides to go to Google on our network, or, decides to look at any files that we have, or do anything on our network, we have a whole server that's dedicated on authenticating that user. Can you even come into our network? Because we do just let anybody. So first you need to be in our system. And then we authorize you. So now you can come into our network because we authorize you, or we authenticated you, excuse me. And then we're going to authorize you and say, this is what you can and cannot do. This is the level of, authorization that you have. So if you're a call center worker, you really can only log in and, log into the system, take calls, right? But if you're a manager, you probably could log into the system, take calls, and log into another system, right? To manage payroll, or to manage, I don't know, a manager system, right? And then we'll take accounting. We'll say, okay, well, you came in at this time with this location, this IP, with this MAC, you did these tasks, which check ADP, you checked, Uber Eats, and you check some other things, and we put that all into a nice little spreadsheet and save it for in case we ever need to get receipts. And that's called accounting, right? So we set up a whole server just for these things right here. So there's nothing you're going to do on any network and say that you didn't do it. Even on a residential note, we have, let's see, because I have AT&T for Wi-Fi at home. So literally AT&T can literally see what I did on my network. Anything that connected to the Wi-Fi box, they can see exactly what did they do, right? Now they're going to give authentication. Authentication is actually putting in my network ID, finding my network ID, my network name, and then putting in the password, which, it's long and hectic. And then it's going to authorize them, okay, you can come in, and it's going to account for whatever they did, right? Whatever my phone did, whatever my computer did, whatever my printer did, whatever my Alexa did. So just think of that as residential, and think of that on a corporate level. So if you decide to go to work and get on the corporate Wi-Fi, or just on your work computer, they can literally see every single thing you do. Okay, there's private browser doesn't work either, right? We control and monitor the access of network devices, period. All right. Now, just to go in a little bit, there's two ways that we use it: TAC-ACS Plus and Radius. TAC-ACS Plus is a Cisco protocol. Radius is open source, meaning that every other vendor outside of Cisco uses this. And again, every network has this server, this AAA server. Okay. For my CCNA folks, definitely you want to know the protocol and ports. TAC-ACS Plus use TCP, Radius use UDP. They may ask you on the exam, and just know, how they encrypt the data and authenticate and authorize it, right? So yeah, that was security. Let's go in a little more with security here, because I have layer 2 security features. So we know what layer 2 is. Layer 2 is switches, MAC address, right? So we have layer 2 threats. Like there's common layer 2 threats, and this happens all the time. This is like, newbie hacking 101. When they want to hack into something, this is like the first probably, thing they'll try to hack into. This is probably like the most easiest thing to look over. So of course it's the simplest, but again, these are something that if you are more on the network engineering side, you definitely have to understand this part of security, right? Layer 2 security, ensuring that, you set up it on a basic level. Okay, so common layer 2 threats, we have DHCP snooping. DHCP snooping is setting up a DHCP server, which we talked about in IP services, setting up a server that does not belong to the network. We call it a rogue DHCP server. It's a server that's like, who created this? So what someone will do, because we all know network engineering and computer and cloud computing, so we would spin up a server, right? It's nothing. We go to VMware, we can use Oracle. I have a lab right now where you can make a virtual machine, and they make this virtual machine and they create it as a DHCP server, and they snoop. They try to hack our network by making the end devices connect to them instead of our dedicated DHCP server. So when you think about it, if an end device is trying to get an IP address in their default gateway in their DNS setting, things to where they're starting to get out into the internet, they're now getting that information from someone that is, a rogue DHCP server, someone that's not us, someone that we did not trust. So who knows what they're doing with your data as they gave you this IP address to use, and now you're sending packets to it, right? So what we have to mitigate that is we call DHCP snooping, okay? And we use that to really just, again, make sure that there's one DHCP server in the network, and there's no other, server that the end devices can connect to. All right, it's just a few commands that we will put on the switch, and we'll just say, hey, switch, only deal with this DHCP server unless we tell you to go somewhere else. If someone else tries to contact you as a DHCP server, ignore them because they lying. They gotta go through me first. Okay. Invalid ARP packets, that is DAI, that's dynamic ARP inspection, right? So you probably know a little bit about ARP, probably not, but ARP is basically just what the switch does to tie a MAC address to an IP address or an IP address to a MAC address, right? Because the switch only knows about MAC addresses. So if the switch gets an IP address accidentally, it needs to record a MAC address to go along with that, or it just doesn't know what to do with that IP address, right? So what the switch will do is the switch will at least try to read an IP address by sending out ARP. ARP is like automatic reply packets. I don't know, something like that. But an ARP, these ARP packets, the ARP, they send it out. I think the P is protocol, whatever. It's this protocol that the switch will send it out and say, hey, I have this IP address. Can anybody give me their MAC address? Or whose MAC address, whose IP address did this belong to? Because I need a MAC address to read it, to send it somewhere, or it's just going to get lost. I'm just going to have to drop it out my system. So I need a MAC address. And then someone on that network will say, oh, that's my IP address. Let me send you my MAC address, right? That's ARP. That's the whole system of ARP. So what happened is the dynamic ARP inspection, and they'll send these invalid packets, is they'll say, hey, someone, y'all send me your, IP, or send me your MAC. And it's not from, that those packets didn't come from our switch. Like, somebody came into our switch and decided to send out fake ARP packets, right? Fake broadcasts that they need fake information just to get real information. Okay, that's invalid ARP packets. And that protocol that we use to mitigate invalid ARP packets is dynamic ARP inspection. So we apply on our switch a configuration, well, a couple commands to say, hey, do not pay attention to these certain packets. It's a couple commands. I don't know if it's like 3 or maybe 4, probably 2. But regardless, it's literally there just to say no. These ARP packets are not true. I didn't see the switch. It didn't come from the switch's memory bank or database. So this must be fake, and we're gonna block all of them. Okay, and if it's not fake, maybe there's some errors that just came in it, but it's not fake, they'll still drop it because again, we're being totally 100% sure, or you invalid out here. Okay, and then lastly, we have port security. So when you plug into your with your Ethernet cable, is it more Ethernet? Yeah, when you plug into your Ethernet cable, then that port that you have on your Wi-Fi box, that's either going to allow you to get through or not allow you to get through. So for us, going back to the data center, we have our switches, our routers, and those have 48 ports, sometimes 28 ports on each of the device. So if someone, just so happen to get through, or let's just say we have a switch in the office and, we're troubleshooting it. Someone can come into and plug into that switch with the Ethernet or Ethernet cable and start taking a look at what configs is on this switch. And so, they'll be able to do certain protocols like CDP, discovery device, or Cisco discovery protocol. CDP is basically a discovery protocol where you can discover what's connected to what. So, a person that knows network engineering could literally turn around and become like, a really great hacker, right? Just by these common threats, because our ports are wide open. So we have to shut these ports off. That's why we have port security. It can be a couple, we have various commands you can use with port security. But the idea here is to literally block ports that are not being in use, or limit ports for what they can and cannot do, right? So invalid MAC addresses, you cannot come into my switch. right? And that's what they'll do. They'll create a fake MAC address and try to connect into the port of the L2 switch, or even the router could be. And it gets real funky after that. So network engineers always has to, know how to at least set these up on a basic, level. But for you out here who's not trying to be a network engineer or not even trying to be in security, what you need to understand that is there are people who are, we call them hackers. They come in and they utilize at least these three basic techniques to steal your identity, to steal your data. I don't know, whatever data they want from you. The most simple example I can give you was like the Wi-Fi at the airport. Never get on Wi-Fi at the airport, not the public one. Definitely use a VPN and then you can use Wi-Fi, but never just connect to that, because this is exactly what they're doing. They're just intercepting so many ways, and that public Wi-Fi is so vulnerable and it has so many, vulnerabilities. So many people, take that, and what do we learn? They exploit that. So protect yourself by always using a VPN. You could use a VPN on your phone as well. So just make sure that you're protecting your MAC address and your IP address, because if you end up somewhere, then, you can't get mad at, you can get mad, but you can't get mad at, probably that company because your credit card number got stolen. Maybe it's your security, or maybe it's the Wi-Fi network that you were on. It was vulnerable and someone was intercepting you making a purchase online. And then they took all your stuff and then ran it up at Amazon for $16.99 13 times. That definitely happened to me. And that's why they have stuff like, refund, report fraud, get a new card. So it's not the end of the world, but at least you can understand what's happening. Okay. So I didn't want to go too deep. So you guys can definitely, go through this if you are in the CCNA. As far as, let's see, securing networks, we talked about physical security. It's locked up in a cabinet closet. If you've never worked in IT, then you probably have never seen these network devices. You've never seen the company's router, or switch, or server. And that's because it's locked up in a cabinet. That's probably locked up in a closet in a room somewhere, right? Like, we're going to make sure we have physical security, especially from folks that's not in IT. And then, of course, your passwords. That's why they make you put a capital, an uppercase, a lowercase, and a special character and some numbers, and it has to be 12 characters long, because again, that lessens, that greatens the combinations of guessing what your password is. We as network engineers, again, have tools to where we can do password crackers and password guesses. And we use that for troubleshooting, but I mean, imagine someone who's not, in good spirits for the day, right? SSH instead of Telnet. These are protocols that allow you to like remote into devices per se. SSH means secure shell. Telnet is just Telnet. So SSH is more secure than Telnet. That's just, two protocols. One is just over the other. And then firewalls. Okay, we kind of talked about firewalls a little bit, but firewalls is a router. But the only thing it's the only thing it's supposed to do is choose packets, whether I should forward those packets into network or discard those packets, right? Just filtering unwanted activity, right, from the internet to your network. Again, mostly you probably have a firewall, switch, router all built into your Wi-Fi modem, and that's usually on a residential level because you're not going to have but so many devices. But when we're talking about working for a company like T-Mobile or Vanguard or Google or Apple, we have to separate this Wi-Fi modem. We have to separate it. We need some routers that only route. We need some firewalls that only prevent unwanted traffic. We need switches to only do L2 stuff. We need this server to only do that server to only do this, so we have to understand that firewalls are a separate thing, but they do come included on smaller scales for smaller reasons. Not going to go into that. We kind of don't need to know ACLs unless you want CCNA, but just to real quick, ACLs is something that we use to configure on our router to permit or deny traffic. Okay, that's really it. So quick scenario, suppose we want to allow one host to come into the network but block all the other hosts. So we wanted to allow this IP address and then we want to block other IP addresses. We would do so by saying, let's permit the IP address we want and let's block all the other IP addresses. That's just the easiest simple way to do with ACL, right? But that's all the configurations on its own. Why will we do ACLs? Because maybe in a company, we do not want you to go to facebook.com, or we don't want you to go to Reddit, or we do not want you to go to certain sites. We block those IP addresses of those sites, right? So you will not get access to the server, right? Because we're going to a website, but that website data is on a server, and we're blocking that server from you accessing that server while you're using our network. So if you ever say, oh, I can't access this website or so-and-so, it could be because that network does not allow you to access certain sites. So get on a different network. And security fundamentals when it comes to wireless. Again, this is more CCNA, but I'll just go over it high level. Security, when we talk about Wi-Fi, obviously we can't do things like port security because, you're not plugged in, you're using, radio frequencies. So, we have certain methods to secure it. And these are some of the protocols. You may have seen it if you, pay some attention to your Wi-Fi boxes. Probably on your sticker on the Wi-Fi box, you'll see your security protocol that's running, whether it's WPA, WPA2, or WPA3. Okay, they have different variations, obviously. I think only WPA2 and maybe PA3 you'll probably see, not sure, but I know you'll see the PA2. And again, they just have certain security protocols to authenticate you. So for example, your Wi-Fi, you're literally connecting through radio frequency waves. So, once you connect, you have to find each other, you're discovering each other. So your Wi-Fi box is on and it's sending out signals, and then your computer is on, it's sending out Wi-Fi signals, frequencies, right? And they're going to connect to each other and become discoverable. And then you're going to say, hey, this is my network, whether it's a name that you know or whatever the case. You're going to click on that name and they're going to ask for the password. You're going to enter the password, and it's going to give you layers of access to the Wi-Fi, right? To the network. Think about it, if you're in a hotel and you connect to like their guest Wi-Fi, they may automatically take you to a browser to say, sign in with your room ID card or something, right? So again, those are the protocols give you that layer of access. So you're on, but you got to put your card number, I'm not your card number, but your room number in, so we can see, do you get the basic package? Do you get the deluxe network view? Like, what's going on, right? Do you get to check your emails for this network? Or do you get to, stream Netflix with this network package? Okay. Let's see. With these protocols, as you can see probably right here, this is how we configure it. It's very easy. It's becoming more easily. This is what we call a GUI, a graphic user interface, because usually we're like in the terminal, like when you guys look for your MAC address and IP address, that's usually how we put in commands. That's called the terminal. But, for the Wi-Fi guys, they kind of have it a little easy. And, more aspects in at least networking, from my understanding, is becoming more GUI based and more not terminal. So if you understand how to work the terminal and run these commands like get your MAC and get your IP, then, it just makes you, a boss. Because everyone wants to have a pretty user interface like this to say, oh, the network name is home D12, whatever. Oh, I'm going to change my mode, and, oh, I'm going to change my security. Like, that's nice to have a drop down instead of actually saying this, putting in the commands. So this is kind of what you'll see, what we'll kind of configure. And you probably have access to almost a similar interface. If you're the one that manages your home Wi-Fi, you probably could go in and actually see these settings. And you probably should be able to at least change your SSID, which is your network name right here. You should definitely be able to do that. Other stuff you may have to call your provider to change. but you should have something like this to where you can see what protocol you use, right? Let's see. So the PA3, I'm just telling you about new features. Again, these are just versions of protocols that give you layers of security for different reasons. So again, we're not going to go into that. But as you can see right here, like we have a password cracker. We can literally crack passwords. We could have a software that literally just comes up with combinations of what your password can be at milliseconds. So we just sit back and wait until a password's been cracked, and then we're in and we're locked and loaded. So yeah, definitely secure yourself out here, folks, because it gets crazy. That's really it with the security, right? Let me just go over really quick. We just really made sure that we knew the basics, the intro, which is understanding why we need security, which is to vulnerability. We don't want to be open to any attacks. We don't want to be exploited. We don't want to take advantage of our flaws. And we, want to lessen the threats, lessen these unwanted impacts to our network, to ourselves. And we have these mitigation techniques, user awareness, being aware, terms and conditions, fine print, things like that, training. Every so often you need to update yourself on what's happening out here with security, what has been advancing. And physical access control, just like the passcode on your phone, right? And for us network engineers, or you guys can know too, as far as knowing when you access a network, we have a server that's dedicated to watching you and notating you and then saving it in our database just in case you get crazy, just in case. So if I was a hacker, I would probably hack into that server so I can get some files on whoever I need to blackmail, right? Like that's what hackers are thinking, or are trying to do. And that's why, again, we have multiple layers of security to even watch you and to even make sure that our own stuff is secure, because we wouldn't want, someone to hack AT&T and then say, oh, or we can say Experian, because that's kind of what happened, hack Experian, and then they have all the data, social security numbers and, addresses of their users, right? Like that's sensitive data that they took, from us that they need to keep secure, and they're not even keeping it secure, right? So, I don't know what's happened to the TACAX or Radius server, but definitely, this is on every network. And we talked about layer 2 security features, DHCP snooping. We're just, making a DHCP server that did not come from our network, and they just want to hack into our switch, our layer 2, to say, hey, come to me for your IP, come to me for your default gateway. And then you go to them, and then you all done and over with. Dynamic art inspection rejects invalid art packets. Again, ARP is saying, hey, the switch cannot read IP addresses. So when a switch get an IP address, they will at least attempt to try to still forward that Ethernet frame, and they'll say, hey, I need an IP. I need a MAC address. Here's an IP. Can someone help me out? Who does this IP address belong to? And if someone on the network actually has that IP, they'll send it. But if that didn't come from the switch, someone else is going to intercept that and take your information, take that MAC address, take that IP, and, do whatever they want to do with it. And of course, port security is exactly what it sounds like, securing the ports, the actual physical layout, even virtual ports. We even have virtual ports that we will block as well. Again, you do not need to get access to us. Only this certain MAC can have access to us, okay? And the switch, we're just putting that on the switch so the switch can know exactly what to do. All right. We talked about firewalls, because we want to make sure that we're protected from the internet. We want to protect our whole network from the internet on the layer 3 level. So, we wouldn't want, anyone to just be able to send us any type of data regardless. Imagine someone who sets their life up to just spam your email. You want a system where it say, I haven't opened any of these messages. Let me just send that over to spam, or let me block this email. Firewalls are going to do that. And then, of course, we talked about the physical security. And then passwords, making sure that your passwords is not 1, 2, 3, 4, ABCD, or your first name or your birthday, right? Like, let's not let your password be your birthday. How about that? Access control list, we talked about. That's a configuration on a router, a list of access, who can come in, who cannot come in. That's all that is. And wireless, we know how to connect on a wireless level. It's through discovery. The router has to discover, well, the Wi-Fi box has to discover our device, and then we can connect to each other, use the correct password to the correct name, right? And there's certain security protocols. It all depends on the network that you're on, right? We don't need to go into the protocols. So yeah, that was basics of security, right? Before I go into the activity and homework, do anybody have any questions about what we went over or we didn't go over? I don't know.
No.
No, good. Okay, great. So the activity is, what are the common L2 threats that we talked about in today's lesson? I want you to post that in the Discord, pound General Tech Talk channel, and tag me. The homework is, what is something new that you learned about security? Tag us on our social media. Social media is right here. You don't have to tag us on social media if you don't want to. You can still post your knowledge in the Discord channel, General-Tech-Talk. Okay, so activity, what are the common L2 threats that we talked about today? And homework, what is something new that you learned about security? So that was all about the basics of security, guys. Hopefully for the ones that, want to be in cybersecurity and haven't really went through that path, you can kind of see, is this something that interested in diving more into? Or, this is, you got your feet wet, you good, and again, this is just the basics. Like, it gets crazy, right, with security. Just like it gets crazy on the voice side. Just like it gets crazy on the Wi-Fi side, believe it or not, with, so few protocols. But yeah, that's it, guys. I will stay. If you guys have any questions, comments, concerns about anything, I will stay on here for 2 minutes because we have to get to the CCNA class. Let me look at the chat. I'm sorry, I haven't been looking at the chat. Hello. I came in late. I will have to watch the replay. Yes, definitely.